Most foreign policy experts have long believed that China, not Russia, is the most dangerous threat to the U.S. With each week, in recent weeks, based on China's actions, that prediction is coming true. Tonight, a Fox News exclusive first look at the Reagan National Defense Survey. It uncovers a huge public relations problem for the Pentagon. Here's National Security Correspondent Jennifer Griffin.
Fox News was given an exclusive look at the survey's findings, which saw a sea change in attitude about the threat posed by China.
We're seeing a huge uptick in this survey in terms of concern about China. For the first time, and we've done this 4 times, 52% of the American people see China as the country that presents the greatest threat to the United States.
The White House says the United States will not send a VIP delegation to this winter's Beijing Olympic. A recent Reagan National Defense Survey found 47% support for a full boycott by the U.S. Olympic team and its athletes, 48% support for a diplomatic boycott, and 60% support for a business boycott refusing to sponsor, or the International Olympic Committee delaying and relocating the games.
They want U.S. companies also not to support, sponsor, and market during the Winter Olympics. Americans increasingly want to demonstrate to the Chinese Communist Party that they did not approve, nor do they want their companies sponsoring Chinese Communist Party activity.
The American people are really coming to a bipartisan consensus around the threats our country faces. As you can see on the chart here, just 3 years ago, when we started the Reagan National Defense Survey, Russia was at the top of that list when Americans were asked which country poses the greatest threat we face. The China threat is really bringing the opinions of the American people in line with the bipartisan national security consensus in Washington about the pacing threat we face from China.
The biggest defense conference of the year is kicking off today. There is a lot on tap: COVID and supply chain issues, cyber attacks, Afghanistan, Russia, and of course, China, in what's increasingly being referred to as a new arms race. Now, according to the Reagan National Defense Forum survey, China is the biggest threat to the U.S.
The American people are willing to consider this very seriously, and they understand the challenge from the primary rival, but they kind of intuit the importance. I mean, Chairman Reed deals with people, more direct voters, but I mean, I get the sense, actually, the China sense, and I think this poll shows it. People get it out there. They felt the impact of deindustrialization, obviously the pandemic that he mentioned, and so forth. So they get it, and now they're kind of willing to hear, okay, well, what's the way that we do this?
Your survey found that 71% of Americans were concerned about a possible war. How did we get to that point so quickly, it appears?
Well, China's done a significant military buildup. They're more aggressive. They're no longer seeking just to be a regional power. They want to be a global power. And so we're seeing that play out in the South China Sea with their island building, with the threats and challenges posed to Taiwan, and their investments with the Belt and Road Initiative across the world. In every aspect of our life, but particularly, as you point out, in the security front, China is acting more aggressively and they're making investments.
What did your survey find about how Americans feel we should respond?
Well, that's an interesting question, Bill. And at the same time as Americans are really having clarity and really a clear-eyed assessment about the threats that we face, they're facing a lot of uncertainty and even some ambivalence about what to do about them, how and even if America should lead in the world, and in some cases, whether we can meet the threats that we face.
You look at this chart, which shows the difference between October 2019 and November 2021. We tend to focus on the extremes, more engaged and take the lead, less engaged and react to events. We ought to really take a look at the middle, because it gives us an important clue about attitudes on foreign affairs and things like global engagement. That is to say, think about that. Better than 1 out of every 5 Americans says, I don't know.
The increase in the American public saying they don't know what the appropriate response is a message to us that we need to be discussing national security matters more with the American public, not less.
This survey from the Reagan Forum found less than half the country has high confidence in the military right now, down from 70% just a few years ago. Why do you think that is?
Well, certainly, Brett, the trends in this survey are not trends that we would want to see. I would say that, and I know I speak for all of my DoD colleagues in this room today and all over the military, that this is very important to us, especially since we have an all-volunteer force. It's important for us to maintain the trust and confidence of the American people. I'll take a hard look at the potential causes behind these numbers, or what the numbers reflect, and we'll take a hard look at ourselves to see what we should continue to do to build trust and confidence with the American people.
Our survey showed that there's a declining confidence and trust in the American military, which is, of course, the primary institution tasked with meeting the threats that we face around the world and rising to the challenges, whether it's China or in any other region.
A new national defense survey conducted by the Ronald Reagan Institute found that for the first time, a minority of Americans, only 45%, have a great deal of trust in the U.S. military, down 25% in the past 3 years. Confidence in the military among Republicans fell by 34 points to 53%. The declining trust in the military is occurring more rapidly than other institutions.
Certainly the numbers represented in that survey are not going in the direction he would like to see them in terms of trust and confidence. It's concerning. The American public's perceptions of the United States military matters to us, not just from a recruiting perspective, although that's valid, but also from a representational perspective. And the trust and confidence in American people, we continue to believe is critically important to the institution.
Should the U.S. have withdrawn troops from Afghanistan? And it's pretty interesting because 40% say no, 47% say yes. And then about 69% thought we could leave the same troop level in Afghanistan and remain, and that it all would have worked out. 24% favored increasing troop levels.
Part of that polling, and I thought Karl Rove made the point very well this morning, is that we haven't had commander-in-chiefs across multiple administrations explaining the consequences of going to zero and explaining that we didn't have hundreds of thousands of troops on the ground that were dying in droves, and using examples of like what we've done in Colombia, reminding Americans we've had people there for 40 years in a supporting role, and that we have 50,000 people and 50,000 service members in Japan and 30,000 in South Korea. And this is really about American leadership, and were we willing to pay a premium to prevent another Pulse nightclub or San Bernardino, or God forbid, another 9/11.
So we have to serve up information in digestible ways to the American public if we want them to be able to be informed when we ask a question like this, if we want them to be informed as voters about what their representatives in Congress should be supporting from a budgetary perspective, and if we want them to support our military and other senior leaders in taking action when necessary.
Would you compare it, and I was just 40 years ago when Ronald Reagan took office, in 1981. What is the fair comparison, do you believe?
I think there are some fair comparisons to be made there, Bill. We're celebrating this year the 40th anniversary of President Reagan's inaugural year. And when he took office, there was a real sense in the nation and among the American people about American decline. And one of the great things about the Reagan presidency was that he took upon himself to really restore the confidence of the American people, not just in our military, though that was part of it through his military buildup, but also in, more broadly, Americans' belief about the U.S. role in the world, about America as a shining city on a hill, about us as a beacon for freedom. And when it comes to our military strength in particular, that the point of that strength is to ensure peace and prosperity and security around the world with his philosophy of peace through strength.
Ronald Reagan had a clear plan of what he wanted to do. We win, they lose. Those are the words he put forward.
Why is the Constitution of the United States so exceptional? Well, the difference is so small that it almost escapes you, but it's so great it tells you the whole story in just 3 words. We, the people. In those other constitutions, the government tells the people of those countries what they're allowed to do. In our Constitution, we, the people, tell the government what it can do. Our revolution is the first to say the people are the masters and government is their servant.